Member of the AntiPoverty Platform says government is not for we. Dr. Michel Petit explains the history of vaccines. And Member of Parliament for the UD makes inquiries into Princess Juliana International Airport. Those are the headlines for Tuesday, January the 12th, 2021. Good evening, viewers. This is SXM Daily News, and I'm Valerie from Putin. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. And as usual, we have a full newscast for you, so let's get started. In our first story, Member of Parliament for the United Democrats, Mrs. Sarah Westcott-Williams, has made numerous inquiries into what she deems an unfortunate situation that played out during the latter part of 2020 between the Airport Holding Board and the Managing Director of the Princess Juliana International Airport, Mr. Brian Mingo. Mrs. Westcott-Williams says she has sent a letter to the Prime Minister and to the Minister of TAAP regarding the developments and has posed a number of questions to the ministers. The Member of Parliament elaborated further for our news department.
In my letter, I stated that the matter is unfortunate, and it is my opinion that it is lamentable that a corporate matter such as this, so a situation between, in this case, one of the airport boards and the managing director, had to be played out in the public domain the way it was. And I believe that the entire matter is all the more regrettable knowing that the airport is St. Martin's primary gateway. And up to not too long ago, the airport was the proverbial political ping pong until it was finally able to secure the funding for the reconstruction. I did not want to rehash the political drama that we saw play out surrounding the airport just before the last fall of government, and that continued for some months until the government recognized it had no choice and then agreed to the reconstruction funding from the Dutch government and the European Investment Bank. In fact, it's only in the past few months, because of that delay, that the airport could have started with the reconstruction. And then we get this letter from the airport's holding board, actually accusing the managing director of the airport of mismanagement. And in that letter, the board also cites and quotes the shareholder, in other words, the government of St. Martin. In the letter from the holding board, several serious allegations are being made, and supposedly this is also done on behalf of the shareholder, as the holding board repeatedly stated in its letter. So since all of this has come out in public and reference is made in the letter to the service agreement between the airport operating board and Mr. Mingo, the question is, and my question to the government is, to whom is Mr. Mingo accountable? The letter from the holding board of the airport also refers to a big vision of government for the airport. And in the opinion of the holding board, the managing director is not executing that vision. So I would like to know, what is this government's vision for the airport that, according to them, the government and the holding board, the managing director is not executing? I wonder if Mingo is even aware of said vision. The holding board in its letter continues to accuse the managing director of not timely executing what he should be doing as far as the reconstruction of the airport is concerned. So what I would like to see, even for the record, is a timeline of the airport's reconstruction funding, the different players in the process itself, and activities undertaken, and by whom, including activities undertaken or not by the managing director of the airport. And I want this timeline going back to when the whole reconstruction funding was made an issue by the government. And when the government then finally accepted that it had no other alternative than the Dutch government and the EIB financing. Also in this letter is a reference to key stakeholders, both local and international. And the reference is that these stakeholders are disappointed in the functioning of Mr. Brian Mingo. So I would like to see the correspondence from these stakeholders with respect to Mr. Mingo's functioning. Because in order for that type of report to be made by the holding board of the airport, the question would be, who has assessed Mr. Mingo's functioning and on the basis of what? So I have also requested to see this evaluation of Mr. Mingo's functioning. There was some talk about Mingo being offered a payout in order to resign, because that is the request of the holding board. And I want to know if that is really so. Was Mr. Mingo offered a payout? If so, I want to know how much was offered to Mr. Mingo. Or was it that Mingo was asked to make an offer himself? So I want the government to provide the parliament, this member of parliament, with all information that would support these claims as made in the letter by the holding board of the airport.
And in other news, a member of parliament for the U.S. party, the Honorable Claudius Stoncher-Buncamper, explained the various laws that the parliament is currently working on and those that have yet to be executed. The member of parliament was on the radio program Breakfast with Robert on Sunday last on PGD2, the Voice of St. Martin Radio. The member of parliament said that we have a rough ride ahead of us, and we have to be very conscious of that. We have to stay positive, and that there are a number of resolutions that he has laid out to the board of his party. Mr. Buncamper expounded further.
We have a rough ride ahead of us. We have to be very conscious of that. We have to also remain very positive. You know, we cannot start dwelling in the negative already, and the year has just opened. I think we have to stay positive. Nothing is for free. You know, there's no free ride in life, they say. But it doesn't mean to say that we cannot do things that's best in the best interest of the country. As the USP party, we have some resolutions that I have laid forward to the party leader and the board. The first discussions went very positive with the leader itself, and I'm awaiting the meeting with the board. But I'll tell you, there are certain things that will continue, like the law on the breathalyzer, the law on the noise reduction, so that people, you know, abusing the noise at night or on the beaches publicly, that we can control that. The police then has the necessary tools to control it. Same for breathalyzers. If you're driving under the influence and they stop you, they can now test you with a breathalyzer. That's at present that's not possible. It's legally not possible. So let me put it that way. So those are the type of those are not too difficult a law to change, and I'm busy with Aruba, who has part of the law, to do that. The same goes, for example, with the electoral reform. We have called for it on numerous occasions. It's been a year nearly now that we're in Parliament, and I too feel somewhat, I wouldn't say embarrassed, but I'll say disappointed that we cannot get it off the ground the way it should. Everybody spoke about it during the campaign, yet those that have the power to do it are dancing around it. Bottom line is, we shouldn't be able to throw down governments because we send a message that we don't trust the government anymore. That's one. So calling elections is utter nonsense. They were not elected, they were appointed. And when your term comes to an end because Parliament that appointed you feels that you're not doing what the country has asked you to do, then you should go home and you should honor that and not throw down a government and call for new elections. That has to change. That is one. The second thing is the remuneration. Parliamentarians, when they go home, if they don't run an election and they set a term, they can get up to 2 years pay. The country cannot afford that. We have to be honest with ourselves. In the Netherlands, they can get up to 5 years, 7 years, depending on how close they are to their pension. But we are not Holland. We can't afford it. So we have to be honest with ourselves about that. So that is something I want reviewed totally. If you come out of the governmental sector or if you come out of the private sector, there should be two different crossovers, because one, you're going back to a job in the government sector. In the private sector, you might not be going back to a job. You see, that's a different story. So you have to look at how you make that distinction. Also, the whole distinction of the pension. At present, the pension is not regulated. So the government pays the pension of the senators while the senators don't pay a cent into the pension fund. That's not fair. We should pay our share of the pension. I have paid it for 25 years when I was a civil servant, and I think I should pay it as a pensioner too. So these are structural things I believe should change. And it will cost us money as a senator, but you know what? You have to also contribute your fair share to your country. You're not only there to govern, you're also there to pay your fair share in taxes and in pension premiums or whatever they are. So in those two things, in that sense, I believe I'm really going to push a little harder than I have pushed in the past to really get it on the floor of Parliament. I also believe, and I am going to be doing this in collaboration with the PFP, that we prepare a integrity committee, a permanent integrity committee in Parliament. Integrity is not something that is only for today. Just like the Constitution, we just created a permanent constitution for a permanent committee for Constitution and decolonization. I think we need a permanent committee for integrity matters. Integrity will always be on the forefront of any business, government apparatus, government itself. So why not have the committee that you can deal with it in the appropriate manner? It should be dealt with in a permanent committee, and we take it from there. Look, those are simple laws that I believe can be adjusted. Another law that we are going to work on, and that is between MP Rayon Peterson and myself. We both come from Vromi, and that is the beach ownership. Who owns the beaches in St. Martin? The country should. Not all over is it that way, because in the law, it says the country can own the beaches, while in the old law, it said, in the law of the Netherlands and Antilles, it said the country owned the beaches.
And in other news, the Honorable Minister of Justice, Anna E. Richardson, and her support staff met with the Integrity Chamber St. Martin for an introductory meeting recently. Representing the independent administrative bodies were Integrity Chamber member Raphael Boseman and Secretariat Director Sharna Pompier. Minister Richardson said that she considers integrity to be one of the most important values that underpin the activities of the Ministry of Justice and its personnel. She recognizes how it can affect public trust not only in the ministry, but in the entire government apparatus, and as such, announced that she intends in this current year to pay closer attention to integrity issues and ways on how the integrity standards can be raised throughout the ministry. As such, the minister also asked for the Integrity Chamber's support in her efforts on this front. The Integrity Chamber has indicated that they will render support where possible and required within the ministry. Mr. Boseman, on behalf of the three-member body that includes Ryan Vogels, president, and Hans Lauder, member, said that it was a positive step for Minister Richardson to reach out to the Integrity Chamber to share her concerns and to discuss bottlenecks faced within the Justice Ministry. The Integrity Chamber is here to assist where possible. It is important for the effective and efficient running of government and for integrity to play a very prominent role. We look forward to and encourage others in government and its entities to reach out to us for information, for assistance, for guidance, said Mr. Boseman. Minister Richardson was very keen to learn about the Integrity Chamber and its core tasks of rendering advice, giving proposals, investigating suspected misconducts within administrative bodies, such as government and its entities, including government-owned companies, and the continuous provision of information to strengthen awareness about the importance of integrity in the community. And still to come, Dutch State Secretary of Home Affairs and Kingdom Relations says his visit was very fruitful. I'll have the details of that story and much more when SXM Daily News returns. Welcome back, viewers. You're watching SXM Daily News, and I'm Valerie Van Putten. As we continue now in more news, member of the AntiPoverty Platform, Mrs. Claire Elshot, speaking at their weekly press briefing on Thursday last, January the 7th, Mrs. Elshot says that the politicians are not for we. Mrs. Elshot was at the time referring to the remuneration of salary cuts of private sector workers and other cuts that the workers on the island have to take, and all these conditions have to be met in order for the second tranche of liquidity support to be disbursed. She elaborated further.
When we evaluate the 25% cut proposed in the remuneration of the politicians of Curaçao, Aruba, and St. Martin, and the 20% cut in the private sector workers so that their employer could receive a maximum of 60% payroll support, and the 12.5% cut in the remuneration of civil servants and semi-public workers, teachers, workers from government-owned companies and government-subsidized organizations. All of these are conditions for the second tranche of liquidity support. The question, who you for, can definitely be answered as not for we. Based on the imposition of the racial discriminatory conditions on the people of Curaçao, Aruba, and St. Martin by the Dutch government to provide liquidity support, it is clear that the Dutch politicians in government supported by the Dutch parliament continue with their more than 360 years colonial apartheid policy. This has never been a policy to benefit us, but to benefit the Dutch state. The Dutch state, through the Ministry of Internal Relations and Kingdom Affairs, is implementing and forcing this policy upon the government and the people of St. Martin, who has to pay through the ministry, who has to pay back for all these conditions. Who has to pay for all these conditions? The liquidity support has to be paid back within 2 years from now by us, the consumers in St. Martin. Did the Dutch people have to pay interest for cultural, social, and economic rights realization? No, not at all. So why do we have to pay interest on the loan provided as a liquidity support? Why are our politicians accepting these racially discriminatory payback conditions? What was the negotiation position our government had in the negotiations? It is clear that the Dutch government forced decisions taken by Curaçao, Aruba, and Martin governments are violating our workers' rights and human rights to an equal economic, social, and cultural rights treatment. So the question now to our local politicians in government and to parliament is, who you for? Who you for? Who are you for? Our politicians want us to believe that these decisions are in the interest of the people. We strongly disagree. The cuts in our labor remuneration make our household income less. already having a combined household income of less than 500 Antillian guilders, the cuts imposed will further reduce the household income of the workers' families in our society. So who you for? Definitely not for the people. Our politicians are for Panopsy and company. Our politicians are definitely not for we.
And as we continue now in other news, while on the island for a one-day visit, State Secretary of Home Affairs and Dutch Kingdom Relations, Raymond Knops, in his closing remarks at the end of the press conference that was held at Sonesta Mahareef on Thursday last, January the 7th, he told reporters that the visit was very fruitful. They had good meetings with government, and he is confident that we can transfer these meetings into action.
It was a long time, too long to be here, but the visit today was very fruitful. I've seen all kinds of aspects of society of St. Martin. We had good meetings with the government. I'm confident that we can transfer these meetings into action. That's in essence what it's all about. And I've seen the resilience of the people, which I knew already is very big. So also this crisis we can overcome. I'm sure. I'm very confident in that. But doing the same things as we did before and thinking that it will be automatically go in the right direction, that is something like believing fairy tales. So we have to make a good analysis. What is good will stay, what is weak has to be repaired, and we do it together. There's no takeover, not at all. We do it together. We have no ambition whatever to step into the responsibility from the government or the parliament, not at all. And I really hope that the conditions for good cooperation have been reset the last weeks and also today, so we can make a good start. And when I come back, and I hope that this will be before summer, I can see again tangible results.
And as we continue now with this COVID-related item, as of January the 11th, there were 20 persons who tested positive for COVID-19. However, 11 persons have recovered, bringing the total active cases to 103. The total number of confirmed cases is now 1,575. The Collective Prevention Services, CPS, are monitoring 103 people in home isolation. The total number of deaths due to COVID-19 remains at 27. The number of people recovered since the first case surfaced on St. Martin has increased to 1,445. 197 people are in quarantine based on contact tracing investigations carried out by CPS. The Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, the Airport Health Team, in collaboration with the Healthcare Laboratory St. Martin, HCLS, have tested 2,139 travelers arriving at the Princess Juliana International Airport, while CPS has tested 11,535 people throughout the community. As the numbers continue to fluctuate, CPS will continue to actively execute its contact tracing measures. As we collectively work towards flattening the curve, Minister of Health, the Honorable Richard Pandeflek, urges everyone to wear a mask, maintain a social distance of 2 meters when in public places, wash or sanitize your hands frequently, and refrain from attending mass gatherings. Now, turning to our weather forecast for January the 12th, 2021, a strengthened Atlantic high-pressure ridge is producing brisk winds. Meanwhile, a stable atmosphere combined with low moisture levels will continue to restrict precipitation across the region. Long-period northeasterly swells and brisk winds will account for rough seas during the next few days. Small craft operators and sea bathers should continue exercising caution. So the outlook through Thursday midday, fair to partly cloudy and breezy with a passing shower possible. Now, let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, Dr. Michelle Petit explains the history of vaccines. I'll have the details of that story when SXM Daily News returns.
The innovative Banco Matico contactless smart card. Your Banco Matico smart card is now equipped with a contactless feature for payments, so get ready to tap and go. Contactless payments are fast, easy, secure, and accepted worldwide at all Maestro-enabled contactless terminals. Tap for transactions equivalent to or less than 100 NAF, or the US dollar equivalent. You will receive notifications via email anytime you tap. Tap, tap, and pay fast with WIB. For more information, visit our website at wib-bank.net. Tap and go with your partner in progress.
Welcome back, viewers. And as we end this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening, in news out of French Saint Martin, talks about the COVID-19 vaccine and the other vaccines that have become available was the point of discussion with medical doctor Michel Petit on radio program One-on-One Fair and Balanced with Jean-Marc recently on Radio Saint Martin 101.5. Dr. Petit explained in layman's terms on how vaccines work.
How does a vaccine work?
Okay.
If you can, you know,
But
and with a little less medical terms,
Of course,
so that
of
people
course.
can
You know,
understand.
that's
How does a vaccine work?
That's always my challenge, and for some reason I always find the proper words, you know, dealing with people from my community and using the words that, you know, they understand. First of all, let me ask you a question. When do you think the first vaccine was created?
I have no idea.
In 1796, in the countryside of Britain, they had, at that time, they had a disease called the smallpox,
Okay.
who was killing a lot of people. There's no treatment, 30% of death, a lot of blind people, and a lot of people who survive with a lot of scars on their face, you know, just like chicken pox, you know, after that you get, but this is worse. I mean, so they realized that the people who were milking the cows in the countryside, because the cows have a cowpox, okay? And the people who were milking the cows then with those blisters from the cowpox, they used to get it on their hands. And they noticed over so many years that all these workers from the farms never got
The
smallpox. So this guy, Jenner, Jenner, he said, well, you know something, we're going to take some pus from those lesions on the cow,
On the cold.
and they give it to a little boy. They scar his skin, they put a pus on it, and 3-4 months after, they did the same thing but with the smallpox, and he didn't get the disease, and that's the way it started.
Okay.
Because that was similar, and it got through to stimulate the immune system to fight something looking almost like that. So the smallpox was almost like the cowpox,
Yeah.
and you had a body reaction, immune system, that when a smallpox came in, it was
The immune system
was
gave out.
fighting it.
Yeah.
So how it works? Let's start before this coronavirus issue and a new tendency. Recently, they were using attenuated viruses, meaning their potential to infect people will reduce, or dead viruses that would retain the signal they're going to give their body. Those are the classical viruses, and they have some vaccines that are made with toxins that, you know, like I think tetanus, lockjaw, things like that, that are using the toxin to make your body react against the toxin. But the classical ones is with the attenuated virus or the dead virus. So when the virus comes in, let's say the dead virus comes in your body with his genetic material still intact, except the fact that he cannot multiply anymore.
And with that, viewers, brings us to the end of this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening. I am Valerie Van Putten, thanking you so much for tuning in this evening. And just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of the SXM Daily News team, we thank you so much for watching and plan on meeting you right back here again tomorrow.